Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. We love to bring you these really in-depth looks at all sorts of different ideas and topics and stuff. Today we're going to try to tackle something that I think is super important to kind of like wrap your head around if you really want to, if you really want to understand the world around us. But it's one of those things that, honestly, it's really easy to mess up.
Yeah, it can be surprisingly tricky.
Yeah, we're talking about correlation and causation.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Like, every day you see headlines.
Right.
And they're screaming like, oh, this is linked to that.
Right.
But, I mean, just because two things are, like, happening at the same time or whatever, does that really mean that, like, one of them is actually causing the other one to happen?
That is the question, isn't it? And I think it's something that, we all kind of instinctively do. When we see two things happening together, it's so tempting to just jump to that conclusion like, oh, this must be causing that. But we're going to kind of dig into why that can be maybe not the best way to think about things. And we're going to be looking at some fascinating work from Peter M. Isager.
Okay.
He's got some notes from 2023 for NotebookLM, I think.
Okay.
And then also a blog post he wrote, which is all about this. It's called Why Correlation Doesn't Equal Causation. Very straightforward.
Right to the point. I like it.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're trying to do today is really give everybody like a solid understanding of what this difference actually is.
Yeah.
Like why is it that correlation isn't the same as causation? And, what are some of the ways that that we can kind of get tricked into thinking that it is?
Yeah, exactly. All the kind of sneaky pitfalls that are out there.
Right. Okay. So I guess to kick things off, why don't we start with like, why does our brain automatically just go to that place? You know what I mean? Like when we see two things happening together, why do we automatically assume that one of them is causing the other?
Well, I think part of it is there's almost like a logic to it, right? Like Isager talks about how causation implies correlation.
Okay.
So think about it this way. If A actually causes B, then we should expect to see them like connected somehow in the real world. So, if exercising actually does improve your mood,
right,
then it would make sense to see that people who exercise more often also tend to say that they feel happier. Like that connection just seems intuitive.
Yeah, it does. It's like common sense almost. Like, okay, yeah, if you work out more, you're going to feel better.
Right.
And he uses this example of exercise and mood. I mean, we see it, right? Like people who are exercising more, they are reporting that they're in a better mood.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for us to just go, okay, well, that means that the exercise is leading to that better mood.
Right.
Like it just seems like the simplest explanation.
Exactly. And that might be true. Like exercise might really be what's making people feel better. But here's the catch. Just seeing that connection, that correlation between exercise and mood.
Right.
That's not enough to say for sure that it's the exercise that's causing the mood boost.
Okay. Interesting. So they might be connected.
They might be connected.
But not in that, like, direct way.
Not in the direct way.
We think of it first.
Exactly. There might be other things going on.
Okay. So what are some of those other possibilities?
Well, that's where things get really, really interesting, I think.
Okay.
Isager says that, let me see if I can find the exact quote. Correlation does not necessarily imply your favored causal relation.
Okay.
Or even any direct causal relation. So just because you see two things like moving together or whatever, doesn't mean that your idea about how they're connected is automatically right.
Gotcha.
There might be a totally different explanation. Or maybe there's no direct connection between them at all.
Okay, so he talks about this directionality problem.
Right.
What is that exactly? Can you can maybe use that same exercise and mood example to like walk us through that?
Yeah, sure. So the directionality problem basically means that even if there is a direct connection between two things,
okay,
the correlation itself doesn't tell us which way that connection goes.
Mm.
So we might be thinking, okay, exercise improves mood.
Right.
But the correlation we see could actually be the other way around. Maybe people who are already in a good mood
right,
feel more energetic, more motivated to go exercise.
Okay. So the good mood comes first.
The good mood comes first.
And then that's what like makes them want to go to the gym.
Exactly.
It's like trying to figure out, did the rooster crowing cause the sun to come up?
Right.
Or did the sunrise make the rooster start crowing?
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And Isager even mentions that it could go both ways.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe exercise does give you a mood boost.
Okay.
And then feeling happier makes you want to exercise more.
So it's like it keeps feeding itself.
Exactly, like a feedback loop.
Right.
The thing is, just seeing the correlation doesn't tell us which of these scenarios is actually happening or if it's like a combo of all of them.
Okay.
We need to look deeper.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what if there's no direct connection at all between the two things that we're seeing?
Right.
Like move together.
Right.
Could we still have like a really strong correlation?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. Think about this. Ice cream sales
Okay.
and the number of drowning deaths, they both tend to go up in the summer.
Right.
We see a correlation there. More ice cream, more drownings.
Right. Yeah.
But it's pretty obvious that buying an ice cream cone doesn't make you more likely to drown.
No.
Right. Or the other way around. It would be ridiculous to say, okay, we need to ban ice cream to save lives.
Yeah, that would be a tough sell.
Yeah. But you can see how that kind of thinking, if we apply it to other things,
Right.
it could lead to really bad decisions.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's a really good example of how a correlation can just be like totally random.
Right. Yeah.
So in that case, if it's not a direct like cause and effect thing, what is the reason for those two things? Ice cream and drownings both going up in the summer?
Well, that's where this idea of confounding variables comes in.
Yeah, okay.
They're also sometimes called third variable problems or causal forks.
Wow.
Yeah. Lots of names.
A lot of jargon.
Basically, it's this third thing, this hidden factor that's actually influencing both of the things we're looking at.
Okay.
So, with the ice cream and drownings, the confounding variable is the weather.
Oh, right.
Specifically, warmer temperatures.
Okay.
Warmer weather means more people are going swimming.
Right. Makes sense.
Which, of course, increases the risk of drowning.
Yeah.
And warmer weather also means more people are buying ice cream to cool down.
Right.
So the warm weather is kind of this unseen force acting on both of those things, making it look like they're related.
Right. When really they're both just responding to this same external thing.
It's like they're both big fans of summertime.
Exactly. Now, Isager actually uses this exercise and mood example to illustrate this too.
Okay.
He suggests that stress at work could be a confounding variable.
Oh, okay.
So high levels of stress, it could lead to people, having less time or energy to exercise.
Right.
And it can also make their mood worse.
Yeah, for sure.
So we might see that people who are exercising less are also in a worse mood.
Right.
But it might be that the stress is the root cause of both of those things.
Okay.
Not that the exercise is directly affecting mood or the other way around.
So it's like this hidden
switch that's getting flipped.
Right.
And that's affecting both things at the same time.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, so we've talked about confounding variables. You also mentioned something called selection bias.
How can that lead to correlations where there's no real connection?
So selection bias is a bit more subtle.
Okay.
It's sometimes called conditioning on a collider.
Catchy.
Yeah, really rolls off the tongue. Basically, it means that the way we collect our data can accidentally create a relationship that wasn't really there in the bigger picture.
Okay.
Isager talks about this in the context of surveys.
Right.
Imagine we're doing a survey about exercise and mood.
Okay.
And he suggests that people's willingness to even participate in the survey might be influenced by both their mood and how much they exercise.
Okay.
So let's say someone's feeling really down.
Right.
They might not be super interested in taking a survey.
Yeah, I could see that.
And then someone who's really focused on their gym routine, they might not want to be bothered with questions either.
Yeah. Leave me alone. I'm trying to pump iron.
Exactly.
Okay.
So who's most likely to actually fill out our survey? We might end up with a lot of happy people who exercise regularly. Let's call them, I don't know, happy gym rats.
Happy gym rats. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe some unhappy people who don't exercise much.
Right. The unhappy couch potatoes.
Exactly. But we might be missing a whole bunch of people who don't fit into those neat categories. What about the unhappy people who still go to the gym?
Right.
Maybe they're hoping it'll improve their mood.
Right.
Or what about the happy people who just prefer to, chill at home?
Right. Yeah.
So by only looking at the people who actually took our survey, we're getting this, distorted view of the real relationship between exercise and mood in the whole population.
Gotcha. So it's almost like we're
Yeah.
cherry-picking our data.
In a way, yeah. It's like, imagine if we studied the height of basketball players
Okay.
and concluded that being tall causes you to be good at basketball.
Right.
But we completely ignore all the short people who are also amazing at basketball, but just didn't make it to the NBA.
Right. Right. That makes sense. Okay, so just to recap, a correlation we see could be A causing B.
Right.
It could be B causing A.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a feedback loop between them.
Yeah.
It could be a third unseen variable causing both.
Right.
Or it could even just be like a trick of how we gathered the data.
Exactly. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with 5 different possible solutions.
Right. Okay, so that's a lot to keep in mind. But does that mean that, like, when we see a correlation, it's totally useless? Like, we can't learn anything from it?
Well, not necessarily. Like, Isager makes a good point. He says, let me see. Correlation indicates that something interesting might be going on,
Okay.
but we need to investigate further.
So it's not like the end of the story?
No.
But it's like a clue.
It's a clue, yeah. It's a sign that there might be something worth looking into.
Okay.
Correlation is often like the starting point for scientific discoveries.
Right.
It tells us, hey, these two things seem to be linked somehow.
Okay.
Let's dig deeper and figure out why.
Gotcha. So what are some of the ways that we can investigate further? Like, how do we try to, like, tease apart what the actual cause and effect is?
Well, there are a couple of key strategies. One is using control variables in statistical analysis.
Okay.
Things like regression analysis.
Right.
And that basically involves adding other relevant variables into our models to see if that initial correlation between the two things we're interested in still holds up.
Okay, so going back to the exercise and mood example.
Right.
If we think that stress is a confounding factor,
Yeah.
we can actually, like, include a measure of stress in our analysis.
Exactly. It's like we're trying to statistically remove the influence of those other things.
Okay.
See what's really going on between exercise and mood.
Right. So if, like, after we account for stress, the correlation between exercise and mood gets weaker,
right,
or even disappears completely,
yeah,
that would tell us that, hey, maybe stress really is a big part of this.
Exactly. And the theories we have about what those confounding variables might be, that's what guides us in choosing which control variables to use.
Gotcha.
So if we think things like diet, sleep quality, social support,
right,
even like seasonal changes.
Sure.
If we think those things might be influencing both exercise and mood, we would try to account for those in our model too.
Gotcha. Makes sense. But you mentioned before that even when we do this, even when we use these statistical controls,
right,
we can't be absolutely sure that we found the real causal relationship.
Yeah, that's true.
Why is that?
Well, because we can never be completely certain that we've identified all the relevant confounding variables.
Right.
You know, there might be some hidden factor out there.
Right.
That we haven't even thought of.
Yeah.
And that's messing with our results.
So it's like we're getting closer to the truth.
We're getting closer.
But we can't be, like, 100% positive.
Yeah. And this is what's called omitted variable bias.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another jargon term.
Yes. Sorry about that.
No, it's good. It's good. Okay, so statistical controls can help.
They can help.
But they're not like a magic bullet.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. And then the other strategy you mentioned was conducting experiments.
Yes.
Now, we know we're going to be talking about that in a future episode.
Right. We'll do a whole deep dive on that.
But can you just give us a quick preview of, like, why are experiments so important for figuring out causality?
Sure. So in a well-designed experiment, we can actually manipulate one variable, the one we think is the cause, and then see what happens to the other variable, the potential outcome, while we're carefully controlling other factors.
Gotcha.
And we do that through things like randomly assigning people to different groups.
Okay.
So this direct control lets us say with much more confidence whether or not there's a causal link.
Gotcha.
Because we're actually seeing what happens when we change something, rather than just observing patterns in data that already exists, where all sorts of other things could be going on.
Gotcha. So with experiments, we're being more like...
Proactive, I guess.
Proactive, yeah. We're intervening.
Okay.
And then seeing what happens.
Okay. So I guess taking a step back, like, what's the big takeaway here about correlation and causation?
Well, I think the main point is that it's often way more complicated than we might think at first. Like, Isager's work suggests that there could be multiple causal pathways all happening at the same time.
Wow, okay.
So we could have some direct cause and effect going on.
Okay.
We could have some reverse causation happening.
Right.
Confounding variables messing things up,
Right.
even selection biases,
Yep.
all contributing to that correlation we're seeing in the data.
So it's not just a simple A causes B kind of thing.
Right.
There's a lot more nuance to it.
A lot more nuance.
Yeah.
Okay. So just because we see a really strong correlation,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a
Yeah.
strong direct causal link
Right.
and then a weak correlation.
Yeah.
Doesn't automatically mean that there's no causal connection.
Exactly. There might be one.
Right.
It's just hidden by other things going on.
Okay.
So figuring out causality becomes this process of, like,
Yeah.
considering all these different possible explanations
Okay.
that could explain the data we're seeing,
Right.
and then using, the tools of science,
Right.
careful observation, good statistical analysis,
Okay.
and ideally well-controlled experiments
Right.
to try to rule out the explanations that are less likely
Right.
until we get to the one that makes the most sense.
Gotcha. It's like detective work.
It is like detective work, exactly.
This has been super helpful. So
Yeah.
I guess to put it really simply,
Yeah.
correlation is like noticing two cars arriving at a destination at the same time.
Okay.
It tells you they both got there,
Right.
right? But it doesn't tell you how they got there. Like, did one car tow the other?
Right.
Did they take totally separate routes and just happen to arrive together?
Yeah.
Was there a third car that dropped them both off?
Exactly.
But like, there's all these different possibilities.
Yeah, there's different possibilities.
Right. Okay, that's a good way to think about it. So for everyone listening,
Yeah.
this isn't just like some abstract academic thing.
No, not at all.
This is important for like everyone.
It really is.
Whether you're reading news articles, you're trying to make decisions in your business,
Right.
you're just trying to understand your own life.
Yeah.
Being able to look at correlations and not jump to conclusions
Yeah.
is super important.
Absolutely.
Okay. So here's something for everyone to think about. Think about a correlation you've seen recently. Maybe it was in the news.
Right.
Maybe it was at work.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just something you noticed in your own life.
Uh-huh.
What are some other possible explanations for that correlation?
Right.
Besides the most obvious cause and effect.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like what other factors might be involved?
Exactly. What are those hidden things?
Right.
Or how was the data collected?
Right.
Could that be skewing things?
Yeah.
Really put on your critical thinking hats?
Yeah. Be a detective.
Be a detective.
Okay. And of course, stay tuned because we're going to dive way deeper into experiments.
Yes.
And how those can help us figure out causality
Right.
in a future episode.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.